Hello, in this video I'm going to explain how to restore and hand colour old photos. This is the image that I'm going to be using here of Tower Bridge, taken in 1892, as we can see down here, and I'm going to remove all of these little dust marks and scratches around the frame and then add a hand coloured treatment to come up with something that looks like this. Now, if you want to use the same image that I'm using for this project, you can find it and download it from Wikimedia Commons here for free. So you just need to go to Wikimedia Commons and do a search for Tower Bridge Works 1892, and then you can download the file. And then once open in Photoshop, we can begin here by bringing up our layers panel by going to Window, Layers, and I'll click the Create New Layer icon here to give me a new empty layer. Then I'm going to grab the spot healing brush tool here from the toolbar, and I'm going to check sample all layers here in the tool options. And I can zoom in closer. I can hold the spacebar and the command or control key, that's command key on a Mac, control key on a PC, and then if I hold that and space and drag to the left or right, I can zoom in or out over different parts of my image, which is really useful when retouching like this. And then I can just paint with the spot healing brush tool to remove these little marks and blemishes around the frame. And you can see how the tool fixes these little areas by sampling from elsewhere in the image. So I'm going to continue working my way around the image here with the spot healing brush tool, and I'll jump forwards to a point where I've finished things off. So after a few minutes spent healing, I've now got a much cleaner image. If I toggle that top layer off and on, you can see the results of my healing. In fact, if I turn off the background, this gives you an idea of exactly where I've painted with my spot healing brush tool. Now we're ready to start adding our hand coloured treatment. So to do this, what we need to do is click the Create New Layer icon to give us a new empty layer, and then we need to go to the blend mode drop down here and change the blend mode of this layer from normal to colour. So now we're all set up to start painting over our image. We can grab the brush tool here and we simply choose a colour. So we can go down into the foreground picker here to choose a foreground colour for our image. Now at this point I'm going to cancel out of that and show you another image that I've downloaded. So I found this painting online by an artist called William Lionel Willie, and again I've found this on Wikimedia Commons, and I've downloaded this image as well. And I'm going to use this painting for reference when I'm hand colouring the photograph. And in fact, I can sample different colours from this painting here to add to my photo. Now, once this fantastic painting is open in Photoshop, I can grab the brush tool. I can hold Alt and click over the water to choose different colours. So I'm just holding Alt and holding my mouse button down. I can just drag over the water here to find a colour that I like. So there's a colour there. Then I can go back to my main image here, and painting on that layer set to the colour blend mode allows me to add this colour on top of the image like this. You can see I can just paint over the water here to add in that greenish colour. Now I can use the number keys on my keyboard here to set an opacity for my brush. I can hit 0 for 100% and then just paint over the area like this. And of course I'm painting very quickly here. You can be a bit more precise, adding in different colours around your images. I can use the left and right square bracket key on my keyboard to resize my brush tip as I paint like this. And then let's perhaps go back to our painting here, hold Alt and click to sample another colour like this. So let's perhaps sample one of these kind of like yellowish brown colours here. Go back to our other image. I'll hit 5 for 50% brush opacity and then paint over the water to add in that second colour like this. So you can see we can start to get some depth to our colours here by just building them up in this way. And I think perhaps we could add a colour to our buildings here. So again, I'll go back to the painting. Let's zoom in a little bit. Maybe hold Alt and sample one of these colours here in the bricks. And then again, go back to our other image. Let's zoom in closer to the towers here. Now I'm going to make a new layer again, and again set it to the color blend mode, just so I can keep these different blocks of color separate from one another in case I want to edit them later. So I'll quickly add this color into the building here like this. And if I think perhaps that color is slightly too brown, I'd like it to be a bit more red, I can always go and change the color slightly, either using a hue saturation adjustment or perhaps color range. So I can hit Command or Control and B to bring up color range. That's Command B on a Mac, Control B on a PC. And then I could perhaps dial in a touch more red to that layer there. And I'm happy with that. I'll hit OK to apply. Now I like the color there, but I think it's slightly too strong. So what I can do now is lower the opacity of that layer using the opacity slider here until I get the right kind of effect that I'm after. So you can see, because we have all of these layer controls, we can be really precise about the colors that we want to add over the top of my image. So, and we just need to carry on in this same way, adding colors to different areas of our photo, and I'll jump forwards to a point where I've done just that. So here you can see I've continued building up the effect on all of these different layers here, just adding those different colors with the blend mode of each layer set to the color blend mode. And I think what I'd like to do next is add some depth to the sky, but rather than coloring it, I'm going to instead drop in another image. So first of all, I need to make a selection of the sky. So I'm going to highlight the top layer in the stack here, and I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Command or Control plus Shift, Alt and E, and that will merge a copy of all of the layers below into one single layer there. And I'm going to use this to make my selection. So I'm going to go to Select and Mask. Then I'm going to grab the Quick Selection tool from the left of the box over here, and I'm just going to paint over the sky, and you can see how the tool kind of snaps onto the edges as I paint. If it goes over areas I don't want, I can hold Alt and Paint to subtract those areas from my initial selection. So I'm just trying to get a decent selection of the sky here. I'll add these areas in. I'll try and add in a few little areas between the gaps in the bridge here just by clicking on these little gaps here. And if the tool picks up any areas that I don't want to include, I can hold Alt and Paint to subtract those areas like this. And once I've got a decent selection here, I can go to the radius slider here to improve it. In fact, if I just change my view here, I'll go to black on white, so you can see initially this is what I'm getting. So it's not really a very good selection at the moment, but if I increase the radius, you can see how we're able to increase the area of refinement and start to get something that's a bit better. Then I could perhaps grab the Refine Edge brush tool here and paint over the edges here, and you can see how this improves my results like this. I'll quickly whiz over this area here, and I can continue painting until I've got a half decent selection. I could perhaps go and increase the contrast down here like this to make my selection more hard edged. And I'm pretty happy with that for now. So I'll go down here and set this to output to selection and hit OK. So now we've got the sky selected, I'm going to drop in a brand new one. So I'm going to go to this image here of this sky, use the move tool to click and drag it into my main image and release. And then click the add layer mask icon here to add a mask to that sky layer. And you can see how that gives me this effect where I'm able to add in a sky to the backdrop here. Now I can click the link here and then click on the image part of the layer here, which is this thumbnail on the left, and then I can click and drag it with the move tool to change the position of the sky if I want to. So I could perhaps bring it somewhere around about there and just tweak the positioning until I'm happy. And I could also, if I like, highlight the layer mask thumbnail there and fine tune what is either visible or hidden on that layer. So I can grab the brush tool and just paint with black. I can just paint with black along a line here like this and just make sure that the sky isn't covering any parts of the bridge here in the foreground. But I'll leave it there for now, and I'm just going to knock the opacity of that sky layer down a touch like that. Although I could perhaps just soften the transition where the sky meets the land. So I'm going to just lower the brush opacity to 20% there and paint with a large brush tip just around about the horizon line here, just to soften the area where that sky meets the land like that. Now I'd like to finish off with a couple of tonal adjustments. I'm going to make a merged copy of all of my layers again using that keyboard shortcut Command or Control plus Shift Alt and E, and I'm going to take this into the Camera Raw filter for some final toning. So I'm going to go to Filter, Camera Raw Filter, and then we can simply use the sliders to the right of the basic panel over here. We could perhaps increase the vibrance, add a touch of saturation, maybe add a touch of clarity to the image. Let's perhaps lift the shadows a touch, maybe drop back the highlights a little, set our white and black points here like this, and perhaps just add a touch of contrast and maybe just lighten the image a touch. We could even add a graduated filter here. If I could grab the graduated filter from the toolbar, load some negative exposure here and drag down from the sky towards the land to add a darkening grab there that darkens down the sky. Then I can adjust the exposure until that looks right, and perhaps finish off maybe with a touch more contrast, and I'm happy with that, so I'll hit OK. And that's my finished hand-coloured image. If we take a look back at our starting image down here, this was our original photo of Tower Bridge in 1892, and we added all those different colours using our fantastic painting to sample from, before finishing off by dropping in a sky and then adding a few tonal effects to bring it all together. And that's it.